All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I don't know where in the world you are. Actually, if you want to put it into the chat window where you're calling in from, that's always fascinating. I am outside of Toronto in the cottage world, hence my beautiful background. And it is the perfect night in Ontario right now. The weather is perfect. Rita and I were just discussing that. But sorry, a little off topic. Um, Emiko Jean is a New York Times bestselling author of young adult and adult fiction, including Love Me Tomorrow and Love Me Always. Her work has been published around the world and translated into over 30 languages. She lives in Washington with her family, although you're in Vancouver right now.
Vancouver, Washington.
Vancouver, Washington,
Yes.
hence the
Yes.
confusion. You
I
know,
always have to trick people. It's not as cool as Vancouver,
you said
BC. Yeah.
Vancouver, and I was like, I didn't
Mhm.
she was Canadian. Okay, I've totally got this
No,
wrong. You are not Canadian.
no, no.
Apologies. She
Unfortunately
lives
not.
in
Yeah.
Vancouver, Washington with her family. Her next adult thriller, Before You Were Anne, will be published on September 1st. So we must know all about that before we
hmm
depart tonight. But before we get to that, let's talk about the book we actually read. Uh, let me hand it over to you, to Emiko. If you is there anything you want to say that I haven't captured in that bio?
No, you've done a beautiful job. I appreciate the warm introduction, and I'm looking forward to talking about the Return of Ellie Black.
Now, do you remember what happened in the book? Because sometimes we talk to authors and they publish so long ago, they have no idea.
I didn't want to say, but I did have to do a little refresher before this because it's been 2 years. And since that time, I've published another book. I have another book that's publishing next month, and I've written another book. So I think I'm like 3 books, in between this one and this conversation with you guys. So I did have to kind of go back and remind myself of certain plot points. So please excuse me if I get something wrong.
Well, and because it's
But
so
I
all
remember the important
consuming,
stuff.
right? It's all
What's
consuming.
that?
It's all consuming when you're writing a book. So you're so in it, right? And you're in
Yeah,
it with the
yeah.
characters and you're like, who's Ellie Black?
hmm I luckily for me, the Before You Were Anne is the follow-up to Ellie Black, and so I feel really familiar with Chelsea's journey still. Some of the other like more obscure plot points in the Return of Ellie Black, I might need a little refresher from you guys. You might have to correct me, but I'm still in it with Chelsea in many ways. So
Well, that's very exciting news for us because we all would love to read more about Chelsea. So, but yeah, we'll cover that after. So, just a note to everybody on the call, if you'd like to ask a question live, please do. That's always fun. There's a raise your hand functionality. There's also a chat window which you can pop your questions in there, and I will make sure that we ask Emiko. Any questions you have about characters, plot, anything about anything really. If you want to talk about process or publishing or anything like that, we're here for it. Uh,
yeah, absolutely.
so on the writing itself, so you wrote Ellie's chapter first, entirely from her point of view, before realizing that the book needed Chelsea as the anchor. What
Yeah.
did you have to grieve or let go of when you restructured it? And is any of that original Ellie only draft still visible in the final book?
Oh yeah, for sure. So a lot of that, the very first chapter where you hear like this is how it begins, kind of from Ellie's point of view, and she's running through the woods, that stayed the entire like revision process. So that was something that never moved for me because I knew it was the opening that I wanted. It might have been from Ellie's first hand account, so it might have been written from first person. Um, and there are a couple chapters in the book that I know stayed pretty true to what the original draft was. Um, but yeah, I mean, I wrote the original draft. It was all from Ellie's point of view. And then I realized very quickly it was past present still. So I had the dual timeline. But having your protagonist who's hiding something, writing in first person in the present kind of sucked all of the suspense out of the book.
Mm.
And so I really felt like in order for readers to be suspicious of Ellie, I needed to have these different point of views. And so the first was Ellie's point of view in the past, which kind of acts just more as a journal, right? And then I added in Chelsea's, which anchored, I feel like, the whole novel and kind of that. detective procedural part where we're learning things as she does. And then the very last thing I added were the other points of view, because I still felt like something was missing because we wanted to see Ellie. I felt like we needed to see Ellie outside of Chelsea's chapters too. And that's when it kind of crystallized for me that we needed a point of view from her dad and we needed a point of view from her mom, um, just so we can kind of keep following these breadcrumbs that Ellie was leaving.
Now, was Chelsea always a character, or literally you just had to invent her completely?
Yeah, so I had a detective in the first book, and it was a male detective, and many years went by. So this is like a 10-year journey writing this book. So I
Wow.
wrote it, I originally wrote it as a young adult book. And so this detective was just kind of following Ellie and trying to help her. Um, but I never really connected with him. And so many years later, when I was ready to pull the book out of the drawer and keep working on it, I realized um, I wanted the detective to be a hero of the novel, and I wanted them to be Japanese American. And so that was kind of the driving force behind, Chelsea's character was making her kind of this outcast in this town in Coldwell. And I think that's why she connects so well with her victims because they feel like outcasts too.
And so, did the original man that was a detective, did he have a missing family member?
He did,
He
yeah.
did,
He
okay.
had I think it was still a sister that was missing.
Okay, okay.
And he kept like a list of names of people that he had recovered, and he crosses out the names when he finds them. And so that was a big plot point in the original draft was this list that he kept, and he had Ellie's name on it, and that he hadn't been able to cross it off yet.
So you say 10 years ago, like that's a long time. Was this like
Mhm.
one of the first novels you tried to write?
Yeah, so I had sold my debut novel was a YA thriller called We'll Never Be Apart. And I shouldn't it's about a decade ago, but like what is time anymore? It's like especially after I feel like I had kids too in between there, and now it's just kind of like before kids and after kids.
Yep.
So it
Agreed.
was before I had my kids. And I had sold my debut novel in a two-book deal. And so I was supposed to write a follow up, another thriller, and it was The Return of Ellie Black. And before that, I think it was called like If You Leave Me or something like that. And I submitted it to my editor, and she was like, "No, it's way too dark. It's not young adult. We
Oh.
cannot publish this." And I was like super devastated. And I did the whole thing where I was like, "I'm never going to write again." And and my agent was like, "You have to write another book." And I was like, "I don't think I can." And she was like, "Well, you like are contractually obligated. You have to write another book." And I was like, "Okay, well, that's a good reason." And so I I ended up writing like a Japanese fantasy because I couldn't bring myself to write like another thriller. Like I just felt so depleted at that point. But Ellie's character always stayed with me. And so I kind of kept the book in a drawer, and I'd go visit it between drafting other books and kind of work on it a little bit, and then I had revised it substantially, and we were about to go out with it again to sell it, and COVID happened,
Oh
and
gosh.
my agent was like, "It's not the right time to sell like a really dark thriller. Like nobody, it's COVID, nobody wants to buy dark thrillers." So I had to sit on it for like I think another year or two before it was like it felt like the right time to take it out on the market.
I'd love to talk about the titles as well because I mean,
Sure.
most of the time nobody cares that it has a different title in a different country, but for us, because we
Hmm.
operate in all of the countries, it's always
Hmm.
a very it's like an admin thing for us because we have to cover both
Yeah.
names when we're promoting the book and both
Hmm.
covers. So, can you talk to us about the different names in the different countries?
Yeah. So it's one of the things my own personal journey as an author is I have very little control over what my books are named. I always give them a title, like a working title when I'm drafting them. I feel like it's like having a ship with no name. Like you have to have like a working title or it's bad luck. Um, but I have never chosen a book title that has stayed.
Aid.
And so when we went uh to sell it, even both editors in the UK and in the US were like, "We're not sure this title is right for the market." And my title was If You Leave Me. And And I said, okay, because I trust there's a whole like marketing PR team that's behind like what kind of titles and covers and things are going to draw a reader in. So I have very little control over that. Um, we're able to like brainstorm together, but it's something that we kind of eventually all have to agree on. And so the Return of Ellie Black was something that I actually didn't think up, but I really, really loved it because I felt like it spoke thematically to the novel too, which is what I always like about a good title is that it speaks to the themes in the book. Um, and then the next girl, they decided in the UK that the Return of Ellie Black wasn't as marketable, so they chose the next girl, which I thought was great too, and it was drawn, right from the pages of the book.
Mhm.
Because I think there's a point in one of Ellie's journals where she talks about there's always going to be a next girl,
Right.
and I felt like that drew on the thematics too of the book about missing girls and missing women.
Yeah. Um, all right. So the next question I have is the device of Kat's non-essential facts list about Ellie is one of the most quietly devastating things in the book. Where did that structural idea come from, and did you write more lists like it that didn't make the final cut?
Um, no, that came actually, and like I said, those point of views came later in the book. And so I don't even remember writing that. Sometimes you just get into a flow and it's like so organic. And now that I'm thinking about it and realizing it, I think I wrote those passages. I did. I wrote those kind of mother point of view passages after I had kids.
Mhm.
And so kind of thinking about, your child as like a whole person and listing all of those things. Um, yeah, I wrote it. Yeah, that kind of, it's so funny whenever I have conversations like this, there's always there's things that happen in the drafting process that you're not always aware of. And then they're kind of like drawn out, I feel like, in conversations like this, where you realize, oh, yeah, there is a connection there to like my own personal life and what was happening during that time.
And I'm just out of curiosity, having written the first draft so long before and having kids in between, did that change anything for you? Because like I'm a mom and I'm reading it and like you're
Yeah.
going through this mental sort of thing about like losing your child is the worst thing that I could imagine happening.
hmm Yeah. I think it added another dimension to the book.
Mhm.
And it was also harder to stomach for me too. So, some of those like really haunting passages from Kat, or especially when we see like Willa in the book, that all came after. That was all like post kids, and so it kind of added this like really thick emotional layer to the whole book. I think that wasn't there before. Um, I also, going back to like being able to stomach things, I remember this really vividly. I was very postpartum and I went out to interview a detective that worked in like crimes like this. And he told me some like very haunting stories. And I remember being deeply affected by it. And I think I took like a month off because it was too overwhelming for me.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So
I
you
don't know, being a mom now, like I'm not sure I could write. I started this book before. I'm like, I'm not sure I could write this book
sure,
now.
sure.
Yeah.
So you've talked about researching toxic masculinity and the ideas of manhood as a cold, hard cage. What was it
Yeah.
actually like day to day to sit inside David's head and write him as someone who believes he loves the girls he's hurting? Did you ever need to step away from the manuscript? Other, I mean, you did, you just told us you did, but like for that specific reason?
Yeah. I mean, he was difficult to write. He was like probably the most challenging character to write and try to understand his motivations. And that was another thing that was layered on later in the process was really figuring out and digging into his character, how he was made. And that's where, I made the connection with, him being, can we do this? Is this a spoiler conversation?
No, everybody's read it.
Okay, great. Where I made the connection with him being the son of of Chelsea's boss, of the
Yeah.
police chief, and being raised very entitled and privileged, and kind of not allowed to cry. And then I wanted to write an antidote to that too. So I tried to make Noah, her husband, and also Ellie's dad kind of the antithesis of who David is, and just show that there can be two sides to that coin. Um, but yeah, he was difficult to write, and to this day, I don't really feel like I quite pulled him off. It's one of those things that, looking back on the book, when I'm able to have some distance from it and kind of look at it through my like writer's lens and the technique lens, that I'm kind of disappointed that I wasn't able um, to shape him more. I feel like he wasn't as well crafted as he could have been. He
Okay,
was bad, but he wasn't, he was not as well crafted, I don't think.
so did you always know how much interiority to give David and Michael, or did an early draft give them more sympathy or more monstrousness than what readers would see in the book today?
Uh, they were later drafts made them more monstrous.
Yeah.
So in the later drafts was when I really figured out what David's motivation was, why he was keeping the girls, what his whole plan was with his mother. Um, and there's a line in the book where Chelsea talks about how we kind of lionize our fathers and villainize our mothers. And that was all in like a later stage of the book where it kind of became illuminated for me that Chelsea's own father was a lot like David's father, and her having that kind of realization that um, these two men were more similar than they were dissimilar.
If anybody has a question, feel free to ask it live, or you can pop it into the chat and I'll make sure that gets asked. I you've said that you don't think it's a girl's responsibility to keep themselves safe. Um,
Mhm.
it's on how we raise boys. Has anyone come to an event with a son or teenage boy in tow? And if so, what was that conversation like?
No, I've had men in the audience, but I haven't had any women come in with, I mean, they've had them come in with their husbands, but not, I haven't had any that come in with their sons, and had that kind of really frank discussion about, what we teach our boys about consent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one of each, so uh
I do too. And I think since writing this book, I'm a little bit, I don't want to say harder on him with, that kind of stuff, but it has made me kind of, it's shaped my parenting definitely about, I find myself saying a lot like, no means no. Like if someone says stop, you stop, and
yeah,
that kind of stuff. And I mean, they're 7, they're 8, but, and so they're still little, but just teaching them about consent is, I think, the biggest thing you can do is, with a young boy.
yeah, for sure. All right. Okay, so let's talk about the final line. The final line about carrying loss in one hand and hope in the other. It reads almost like a thesis for the whole book. Did you know that that was going to be your ending before you knew how the mystery is resolved, or did it arrive later?
That was in the original draft of the book, and I think that's really who Ellie is. And that was, I remember when I thought about her character, whenever I think about a character, I think about um, where I want them to start and where I want them to end. And so I always knew that I wanted to get Ellie to a place where she's on a path of healing and she's going to learn how to do those two things that she knows she can't ever like forget what happened to her, but she can also move on and heal from it. Um, and so I remember really vividly that was part of the original intent of the book.
Okay, I think this is a good segue for sort of looking at Ellie's recovery because it's not tidy. What was the line for
Mhm.
you between an honest ending and one that would feel, sorry, sort of ex exploitative or hopeless to
Mhm.
a reader who survived something similar?
Yeah. So I talked to survivor groups, and I had long conversations with survivors about their experiences, and I that was a hard that was something that I questioned during every stage of the draft, is like how to not make this feel exploitative. Like I don't want to use sexual assault as a narrative device,
Yeah.
right? Because I've seen that done before in books and it feels yucky. And so I really wanted to make sure that um we're hearing Ellie's, first person account. I think that's why it was so important to keep her first person point of view in, because she's talking very honestly, and it's sad, but she's so angry too. And I remember there was a question for my agent because there was something about like some of the graphic parts of the book, and there was a question from my agent, like, do you want this to be in the book, like this graphic part, especially when she first comes to the compound and David dances with her and then they're in the bunker. And I sat on that for a long time because I was like, is this too graphic? Is this exploitative? Um, and I came to the answer of no. And then I added a line in the book from Chelsea's point of view that someone has to like bear witness to these crimes and to what's happened to these girls. Like we can't always just like look away from it. And then I think I added another line to Ellie's point of view where she talked about wanting to gentle the truth for people to make it more palatable.
Mhm.
And so, that line of questioning just from my agent, I think just added more depth to both characters in terms of how they thought about their crimes and how they thought about what happened to them too.
Rita wants to know if you can talk about what type of seeds the girls were taking and growing.
Oh yeah, so they were it was I'm not a botanist, and I did have
Queen
a
Anne's
botanist
lace.
point.
Nikki's written
Queen
it.
Anne's lace, yes, Queen Anne's lace, and it can be used as an abortive medicine to keep women from getting pregnant. So that's what the girls were taking, and that I added in a later draft too. It was right after Roe versus Wade was repealed in the United States, and so I don't know if everybody knows this, but in the United States we had Roe versus Wade, which
Yeah,
was
yeah.
a woman's right to choose, and that was repealed. And so I wrote that. I changed the whole book to kind of address, you know, choices with girls. Um and they were taking Queen Anne's lace, but there was a botanist that pointed out to me that Queen Anne's lace only it's it only blooms once every 2 years. And so someone like pointed out to me that like technically they wouldn't be able to harvest these seeds. And
But
I was
none of
like,
us knew
okay.
that.
It was like
So it's
it
fine.
was one of those things where it was like it was much the book had already been published, and I was like, this is done. And there always seems to be one thing or a couple of things, a handful of things. Like I researched a lot. I met with detectives. I went out on a boat one day to get like the fishing stuff right with Ellie's dad. I sat down with survivors and I talked to them. I interviewed an FBI agent that was at like Ruby Ridge. I talked to like blood analysts and all this kind of stuff. But I did not talk to a botanist. I researched it online, but I was like, and there's always something I feel like that you don't foresee in a book, and someone will tell you, and that's
Now I
okay.
have to question you about one thing that I just
Okay.
couldn't believe when
Hmm.
Ellie got back from, first of all, she was in the
Uh-huh.
hospital for like I thought a second. I thought she would have had to stay there longer.
Yeah.
And I also
Yeah.
thought that Chelsea would have really been able to like they would have had to talk to Chelsea. There's no way that they would have just been so cavalier and just like, well, she's going through trauma. You can't go near her.
Yeah. I actually think so. I did work out that plot point with the detective, and they did say that like the victim drives the case. So if they're not cooperative, then they won't pursue it. And it has to do a lot with one, respecting what the victim wants and what their wishes are, but also the detective's bandwidth, because these detectives have so many cases
Oh, wow.
and that they're dealing with. And so it's, they have to choose kind of what time they spin on things. I mean, Ellie's case technically is like a higher profile case, so a detective would probably keep pursuing it. And then I think I remember in the beginning of the book, didn't she insisted on going home, like she just wanted to go home,
Yeah,
right?
she was there for like 2 minutes. No,
Yeah,
it didn't
yeah,
seem like very long.
yeah. Because I tried to make it so that she was like physically okay to go home, that there wasn't like a medical reason to keep her in
Yeah,
the hospital. And then if she mentally wasn't, she didn't want to be there, I felt like they would let her go.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was
I
like,
because I did yeah, I talked to the what's it called, the sexual assault nurses or whatever. Yeah, I spoke with one of them, and we kind of went through I think the first chapter or the first couple of chapters of the book, and she felt like um but we went more into like the actual details of like what a rape kit looks like standing on the sheet and everything like that. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Hmm.
I mean, maybe I was just super frustrated.
Yeah. Like,
You need
please
to
keep
talk
this girl.
to
Yeah,
her.
yeah. Do something. I know, I know.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, let's talk about Coldwell Beach, Washington. So the town is
Hmm.
modeled on Long Beach. It's a narrow spit of land with one road in and one road out, sitting under the threat of um Cascadia tsunami that could wash it away
Hmm.
entirely. And you've said
Yeah.
that pairs with the book's survival themes, but it also means everyone in Ellie's world is geographically trapped together. There's no easy way in or out. How much did that physical isolation shape the community dynamics in the book? The gossip, the suspicion, the way everyone already knew everybody's business. Did the setting end up shaping the mystery's plotting as much as it shaped the mood?
I would say it, I mean, the setting kind of drove the mystery. I mean, I remember being very intentional that I wanted this place. I visited Long Beach as a kid, and my brother-in-law has family there too. So I'd go back, as an adult, and that's where I spent the time on a fishing boat. Was kind of so I got like firsthand experience in the community and talking to the fishermen and everything and how it had changed over the years. And uh, the setting really acts as its own like character in the book. I feel like it's dark, it's gloomy. There's this like existential threat always present. There's this fear of like everyone being wiped away at any time. Uh, and that's part of all of the characters' psyches, right? Is that they could all die together at one point. Uh, and so it binds them in this really interesting way,
Yeah.
too, I think. Yeah.
I thought for probably half of the book that Chelsea's husband was dodgy.
Oh, yeah.
that just me or was that intentional?
Yeah, he was supposed to be a red herring because
Okay.
like how many thrillers have we read where it's like the husband?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm gonna play with this a little bit and see if maybe I can plant it in anyone's brains because I think there's a part two in there where Chelsea talks about like Noah's hands and how easily she could see him strangling her. And I think that works very well with like the detective's mindset. Like it gets into your head,
Mhm.
like the kind of the paranoia that like you don't ever really know the people that you love or what people are capable of
Yeah.
because Chelsea has seen so much in her career. Um, and it's really scary to contemplate that your husband, your brother, your daughter, your mom, whatever could be capable of
Well,
something
her
really
sister
heinous.
for a while.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Exactly.
I didn't see
Yeah,
it
yeah.
coming. I don't know if
Mhm.
anybody in the chat wants to tell us when they kind of figured out that I mean, I didn't know it was her sister until it was her sister.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shocking to me.
Yeah, I always knew that Lydia was going to be, she was on the compound, but I
Mhm.
did have to go back because once I had finished the draft and it was Lydia, I felt like it was too out of left field. And so I had to go back and kind of just make sure that there are places in the novel where it's hinted at or foreshadowed. Like in one part, Chelsea talks about like the ocean and how it takes and how things are never found. And that's kind of her alluding to that her sister's body was never found, even though
Right.
she never directly says that. Um, and so I had to go back and kind of plant those things throughout the book. But yeah, I always knew Lydia was there on the compound. She was, she's Serenity. Yeah.
Well, poor Oscar, he was really the victim in all this then.
It's Oscar's mom. Yeah. Yeah. And that's another good thing. I mean, not good thing, but that's another thing that I wanted to play with too, because it is part like it's, we have seen, unfortunately, in true crime, like these kind of murder suicides. And so I felt like it was believable that
Yeah.
this boy that was in love with Lydia could do something like that. So it kind of played on kind of our own preconceived notions.
So, Emiko, is this your only thriller that you've published?
So I have a young adult thriller that I put out many, many years ago called We'll Never Be Apart.
Okay.
I'm not even really sure if it's still in print.
Okay.
Um, it shows up occasionally, like I've seen paperback copies occasionally, but And then no, but this was my first adult thriller, and then I have my second one, Before You Were Anne, is coming out in September.
Okay, before you tell us about that, I just want to ask you a question about genre changing because we talk to a lot of
Mhm.
authors and some like love one genre and never ever like stray from it. It sounds like you've done quite a few actually. Do you have a
Yeah.
preferred genre? Is one easier than others?
I've been writing young adult for a long time, and so I feel like that's easier for me, but I'm a writer that likes a challenge, and I think that's why I'm kind of turning more towards adult novels. There are themes that you can explore that are better suited for adult than are for young adult, but I find they access like different parts of my brain. So there's like light and dark. So I kind of toggle between them. So I could write a young adult novel and then I can write an adult novel in a year, but I don't think I could write two thrillers in a year.
Okay, fair.
Um, yeah, I just don't they kind of access different parts of my brain and myself too.
Mhm. So what is Chelsea up to next? Tell us all.
Okay, so Chelsea's back. It's been a couple years.
Mhm.
And
Is she still married?
she's still married.
Okay.
She has a baby on the way, and she's
Oh,
living in Seattle, so she's in a bigger city.
yep.
And she has a partner who we met in the Return of Ellie Black, Detective Montoya.
Okay.
So he was the one that worked with her to
Ah, yeah,
raise.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
really smart and yeah, I remember.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and so she has a partner now, which I love their dynamic. And she's very newly pregnant, and she goes to a crime scene of a Japanese American woman that's been killed, and her daughter is missing. So we get another missing girl case, but it's much different than the Return of Ellie Black. And um, it spans continents. So we get to visit Japan, we
Oh,
get to
wow.
visit. Um, we get to visit other parts of the United States. And this is also where Chelsea really begins to kind of question her identity and her adoption. And there's some family secrets that come to light.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's a little bit, it's intergenerational. It's about mothers and daughters. Um, we still have the thriller bones of a missing girl and her kind of doggedly trying to find this girl before it's too late and solve this murder. Um, but we get a lot deeper with Chelsea in this book.
And it comes out in September, you said?
It does. Yeah, yeah,
Amazing. Well,
very
we'll keep our
soon.
eye out for that for sure. Do we know, is Lydia in it at all?
We hear about Lydia and how she's doing,
Oh, good. Oh,
but we
good.
don't get to physically see her. I think I did write in one of the I wanted to see her because I just feel like there's more work to do, obviously, on their sister relationship.
Yes.
And it's complicated. And and I wrote a scene with Lydia in it because I was like, could I tie her to like this crime and like try to like, make her, have some knowledge of it or something? Because I really wanted to bring her into the book, but it ended up not working. And what really Chelsea needed to focus on in this book was kind of her relationship with her adoptive mother. So that's where it kind of organically turned. But I did write a whole scene with Lydia because I just wanted to revisit her, but it ended up not making it as part of the final draft.
So Rita asked, hey,
Oh,
sorry. I've been hiding
hi.
outside, but they found me. No, 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 guys, guys. No, 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 no. No, inside. Both inside. Inside, inside. Oh my goodness. Esther, not funny. Go inside, please. Um, sorry, guys. Rita wants to know how much time does Lydia serve? If is that in the next book, or do you even know the answer to that?
I feel like she got life in prison, didn't she? At the end, did I say at the end of the book? What, or
I
she was
I
going to
don't remember.
trial?
I don't remember
I
what she got.
Life in prison feels right to me, but don't quote me on it. Maybe I have it in Before You Were Anne in the next book. But yeah, she's serving time. She's found God. So she's working through some of her crimes and her all of her problems. Yeah.
All of her problems. Yeah.
Hmm.
And will Ellie Black be made into a movie or series?
I don't know. It's been optioned, but it's kind of like we really never know. Once the title is optioned, it's kind of out of our hands as the author, what happens with it. And so there's a lot of like moving parts that need to come together in order for it to become a television show or a movie, but fingers crossed.
I feel like they're doing that more and more these days, though.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of production companies kind of swoop up options and then keep them. It's fairly cheap for them to keep them kind of on the shelf indefinitely. We still, I get paid a little bit of money for them to keep it on the shelf, so it's also a great deal for me. But um, you never know. And there's some books that it's like 20 years later that they get actually
Do
made
they
into
only get to
something.
hold them for so long? Like, or do they have to pay every year, or is it like a contract that expires?
Now I have a little person sneaking in on me. It's that time of night, I guess. Uh, so usually you sign an option agreement that's like for a year, or for 2 years. Sometimes it's for 3 years, but and most often they'll come back around and say, do you want to sign this option for another year? And then the author can decide if they want to keep with that company or try to see if they can sell it somewhere else.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, all right, the last question I have for you is can you tell us anything you've read recently that you loved, or even if it's an arc, um,
hmm
or any books that you just love in general, whether they're new or old?
I love Olive Charlotte, and well, I hope I don't butcher her last name. Charlotte McConaughey. She
Okay.
wrote Once There Were Wolves, and she wrote
Yes,
Wild Dark Shore.
yes. Once
Did
there
you
were,
read?
I haven't, I read Wild Dark Shore.
Okay.
There were
Once
wolves.
There Were, yeah. Oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful book.
I just saw it at
And
Indigo the other day, so I was like, I was looking at it. I was like, hmm.
yeah, pick it up. I think it's out in paperback. I think Wild Dark Shore is that. I think it's still out in hardback. So, um, it's a really beautiful book. It's about a sister relationship, which I'm always a sucker for. Um, I have sisters myself, so I'm just always so drawn to those narratives. So she writes beautifully. So if you love good sentences, you love like a gripping mystery, she's your go-to gal. I also just read Yesteryear, and I know it's like the big book of the year. Um, and I couldn't stop reading it. It was a wild ride and it was so entertaining and so fun. Um, and it also is very like there's a mystery built into it too. So I don't know if you guys are planning on reading it or not, or if
I've
you've
read
got it on your
25% of
list.
it and I put it down.
Yeah.
Now everybody
Yeah.
I talk to is like, have you read this? And I'm like, I guess I have to pick it up.
She's really hard to palate. Like she's not a likable narrator. And
Yeah.
I was like, and I don't feel like her at all. Like I'm not, she doesn't pull at anything inside of me. I feel like her. So I don't know. And so it was hard. I mean, but it was interesting. So go back if you want to, but I also don't mind. I'm a proponent of do not finish. Like if you're not feeling a
Yeah.
book,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
totally fine. Life is short. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so
hmm
much for your time. Thank you, everybody else, for joining
Yeah.
us. And we look forward to the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. Check
Right.
out Before You Ran. It comes out September
Before
1st.
You Were Anne. That's the name of it.
Before You Ran. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, have a good night and thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye, everybody.